Electrical energy is arguably the most important resource in the world, from powering cars to heating homes, from watching videos to lighting up your home. Electrical energy is in most people's daily life. There are several different forms of energy, all depending on how electricity is made, and today we're focusing on green energy. Green energy, also known as clean energy, is the energy that is produced in ways that generate little to no pollution or greenhouse gas emissions and cause minimal harm to the environment. Some examples of clean energy would be solar, wind, and hydropower. But how exactly do these forms of clean energy even work? Well, put simply, when sunlight hits the panel, it transfers energy to the electrons inside. Once these electrons start moving, they create a direct current of electricity. It's then converted to the specific electrical current that's used in homes and power grids, thus giving us power. Now, both wind and hydropower are based on a similar premise. You get something consistent to move a turbine, a river, for example. Then that turbine converts mechanical energy into electrical energy, thus giving power. Now that we've established how these forms of green energy work, let's get into why green energy is so important. It's important because it fights climate change, reduces pollution, protects natural resources, improves public health, and increases energy security. However, only around 13% of the world's total energy consumption actually comes from renewable sources. Now you may be thinking, why don't countries just make the switch to clean energy? And as all things do, it comes down to money. However, not the way you might expect. On average, acquiring renewable energy is actually cheaper than non renewable energy. Now, what does this mean? It means that for every $1 spent getting renewable energy, you'd have to spend anywhere from 1.5 to $3 to get the same amount of fossil fuels. However, the biggest issue is that the refineries, the pipelines, coal plants, gas cars, etc., they're all already built to allow the use of gas and oil, meaning renewable energy doesn't have the infrastructure to back up its power generating ability. Not to mention, these fields employ millions and have had a monopoly on energy for centuries, thus making it even harder to transition into clean energy. Also, because of the fact that solar doesn't work without sunlight, or the fact that wind doesn't always blow, it means that in order to capitalize on clean energy, a massive battery storage will need to be created and maintained. Overall, non renewables are much easier in the short term. However, the real change comes from renewable energy 10 plus years down the line. Now, with every high, there's a low. So, what's the downside to green energy? As mentioned briefly earlier, green energy isn't always available depending on the weather. Another major downside is with how expensive storage is. Batteries use materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, all of which also have environmental concerns. Although smaller than gas or coal, the environmental impacts from renewables still exist, like disruption of fish ecosystems, mining for materials, or the land requirements for solar farms. And although renewables are cheaper long term, it's a huge upfront investment that takes a long time to pay off, and many countries simply can't afford fast transitions. One final major reason is that the infrastructure in today's society was built for big coal and gas plants, not for thousands of small solar and wind sources. Transitioning an entire society's major energy source takes time and resources, a lot more than what people think. Green energy has come a long way, and it'll continue to go even further. With continued investment and dedication, green energy looks like the way of the future. If you'd like a dedicated video on any of the subjects covered, let me know down below. And what are your thoughts on green energy? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and thanks for watching.